Hello friends, welcome to Help Me Coder, the channel which talks about technology and helps the coder community out there. And in part 7 of this video, we are going to look into expressions. As you saw in our part 6, we were learned about input parameters and dynamic content, which basically allows us to use the existing data that has come to you directly on your flows. But that doesn't make your flow dynamic. So what makes your flow dynamic? It is this expression. And how it does that? It takes your data and you can use the data using these formulas. You can manipulate it and you can transform it in a way that you want your result. In this video, we are going to look into different kinds of expressions that you can use, whether you are using in string manipulation, whether you are looking into date or logic manipulation, and where all we can use it. We'll be doing a demo. So let's quickly jump into the video. So what are expressions? Expressions in Power Automate are formulas or functions that help you to manipulate, transform or evaluate your data. So you can think of them as a mini pieces of code that you can plug in into your flow logic so that it can make your flow dynamic. Example being, like if you get two pieces of text, you can concatenate them. If you get some dates, you may want to find some date difference. You may want to change the way the date gets displayed, so that you can do. Then you want to do some conditional logic. Imagine if you want to put some if condition and if else, or if you want to have an and condition, those things you can do, the logical operations you can do. So I have mentioned over here some of the categories. We'll quickly look into the demo of how do we use expressions across these categories. Other point to note is that, as you know, the flow consists of two parts. One is triggers and actions. Mostly you will use expressions in action part, but there are cases where you do use them in your trigger part as well. Like when you want to do some initial formatting, then you can use it there, or you want to have condition based triggers. So you want to choose a trigger based on the condition. So in those cases you can use expressions there. But for the action part, you have lot of places, lot of different reasons why you may want to use expressions, like manipulation of data, performing calculations, control logic, format output, all these different things. These things will be very much clear to you after you watch this demo. We will be going through each of these categories and some demo reasons on why we want to use expressions. So let's quickly jump into the demo. So now let's quickly start our demo. So we will be creating our new flow, which is an instant cloud flow, and we will be manually triggering a flow. We name this flow as expression and we create this flow. Now for this flow, we are going to add some input parameters and we will be giving it as first name, last name. I'm trying to have different kind of parameters. Basic salary, then we will do another which is additional salary, then I will say as joining date, termination date. So these are the basic input that I am going to take from the user when we start the flow. Now we are going to use an operation called as compose, and which basically is used for any kind of calculations that you want to perform. Now before I start the expression, let me show you how the expression function looks. So this fx thing that you are seeing over here is the expression. This one was the input parameter, dynamic parameter that we saw earlier in our previous video. This is the expression. So when you click over here, this window comes up where you will write your formulas or the expression. But the good part is that there is lot of intelligence baked in, so you don't have to remember these formulas by heart. You just start writing few characters and it will show you the formula that are available around it. Now also, if you don't even remember the starting words, you can find type of expressions that you are looking for. So if you see down, then you see there are a lot of different kind of expressions available. You see string functions, you see replay. These are all the different kind of string functions that you can use, or the formulas that you can use. Then there is a collection functions which contain, length, sort, reverse, empty. All these are the collection ones. Then there are logical conditions, if conditions, and or conditions, not. All these are logical functions. Then there is a conversion function where we can convert like int value, string value to int, or float value to int, or all those different kind of conversions that you want to do, even boolean conversion and everything. Then there is mathematical functions like addition, multiplication, maximum, minimum, all those things. Then date and time functions. So all the different kind of operations that you can perform using, you can find all these different functions. So go ahead and have a look on these different operations. We will start with the concatenate. Let me enlarge this window again. We will start with the concatenate function. Once you type concat, you will see that there is IntelliSense telling you about this function. So required one or more string to combine into single string. So now when we are in concatenate, I can add dynamic values from the previous flow item. So if I go into dynamic content section, I can search the values that I received earlier. So in our case, I want to concatenate first name and last name. So I will say first name. I will choose first name. So this is the first name that got added. Then I will put a comma. Then it will ask me for the second string. So I want to give a space in between. So I will just put a colon over here, and then I will put a empty space in this particular part, and then I will put again a comma, and let me enlarge it so that you see it clearly. Then I will put the another last name over here. So this is the last name. So this is the name that I want. I then click on add. So this is the name. So I will say name is, so this is a combined name, and then I want to combine the salary also. Has a salary of. So there are, to combine the salary, I will again click on fx, and there is an add function. I will click add. Again, it has IntelliSense. I would have to provide the first parameter of the add, sum two numbers. So correct. So I have to provide that. I will go into dynamic content. I will see all my items, and I will find the basic salary, and I will put a comma. Then I will put the additional salary. So now this will add both. This will show you name is what is the full name, and then has a salary, the combined salary. Let us quickly save this and test this out how it looks. So I am saving it right now, that the flow has saved. Now click on test, do it manually. So first time I have to write my name separately. Basic salary, imagine I have basic salary of 5,000, additional salary of 1,000. Then my joining date, imagine, is like previous month 3rd, and then the termination date is today, imagine, and then I say run this flow. Now the flow has run successfully. Now if I click on the compose section, so you see the name is Heman Joshi, which has combined the name and has a salary of 6,000. So that is the first expression that I wanted to show you. So I will click on edit again. So to name this clearly, I will name this compose as concat expression. Yeah, and then I want to show you another expression. Now imagine I want to take the first character of Hemant and the first character of Joshi. So I want to find the initials of both of them, and I want to display as a shorthand notation as HJ instead of Heman Joshi. So how we gonna do this? So again, I will use the data operation called as compose, and in this compose I will say shorthand name is. So again I will use the fx, and you start writing. See, if I start writing substring, first thing that it asks me is the text from which you want to get the substring. So I want to get the substring of first name. What is the second thing? It tells me the start index. So start index can be the 0th location. It starts from 0 location, and then how many characters I want to get. So I will say I want one character only. So that will give me the first name H. Then I want another substring, which I will say again a substring, and which I want to do it for the last name. So now I will choose last name over here. Again I will say 0th location, and I will say first location. Now if you see, we are trying to concatenate the first word and the first word of H which is from Hemant, and the first word of Joshi, which is J, together. So I can use two functions together. I can say concatenate this one, which is the substring, with another substring, which is this one, together. I don't want to give a space here, so I can just put a comma and then I can put them together. So that's it, and I add this function. So this one is a substring, so I will just name it as substring expression. So let's quickly test it out. I will use the existing data and I will click on save and test. Now if I see it run, flow has run successfully. Now let me see the expression. The shorthand name is HJ, so it has character from Hemant and first character from Joshi, which is J. So this is how the dynamically we are manipulating the data using expression. Now let us quickly do another kind of expression, which is doing some date manipulation. So let us again use a data operation called compose. What we are trying to do is basically we are going to do the date difference between the joining date of the person and the person when they leaves the company. So I want to find how many days in between. So I would say date difference. So if you see how the IntelliSense is helping us so quickly on this, I will say date difference. If I show you what it says, it defines the start timestamp. So I can go again to the dynamic content and I can choose the joining date, which is the start timestamp, and I want to return the different this is the end timestamp. So the end timestamp is my termination date. So this will give me the date difference. Now let me add this. So I will say number of days stayed in company. So it will tell me the number of days stayed in the company, and I can save this and I can quickly test this as well. Okay, let me test it with the recent use trigger and let me test this out. So okay, it ran successfully. Now let me see what it is the output. It gives me 39.00:00:00. What is 00 and 00? All these things. So I think so it tells us hour, minutes and seconds as well in our result. But for now I just want the exact number of days, so I don't want to go into, I want to remove everything over here. So this lets you to write another expression over here around this date difference. So what I want to do is I want to split this expression from the dot part. So there was a dot part, if you would have seen earlier. I want to split it around there. So I would say split this date that I am getting, and I will if you see this syntax. So the text is the string. So this was the first string, that is the date difference. Then the separator part. So separator for our case is the dot over here. So we will say okay, separated based on the dot. And then the next thing that I want to also wrap it around, because when you do split the string, so it will give you all the strings that are there in the split. So it will give you two different collection of strings. I will say I want only the first part, not the second part, because when you do the split on the dot, there is a first part and there is a second part. But I want the first part only, where the actual number of days lies. Other is all 00, so I don't want that. So I will say first part of this whole thing, I want to get that. And this information is a string information, so you may want to cast it into an int. Maybe you want to do some calculation later on, so you can cast it over here, and then I can say update. Now let us see how it looks now, and I will click on test. I will say automatically recently used trigger, and let us see how it looks. So if you see now, the number of days stayed in the company is 39. So this is what I want. So that is awesome. So now the expression on date, you have seen how do we use date. So I will change this as date expression. Okay, so that is a date expression. The next thing that I want to show you is again around date area, on how do you format the date. So let us see this. So I again use a compose action, and I want to see the joining date. So I will say joining date, and I will use this dynamic content to get the data and just show the data. So I will say joining date over here, and I will in the next line as termination termination date, and I will again use this dynamic content to get the termination date. So that is how the date looks. Now let us see how the dates get displayed. So I'll save it and test it, and if you see, the date is coming as year, month and day. I don't want the date to appear in this format. I want it to appear as DDMMYY format. How can I change that? So in expression, if I go back, I click on this joining date, I can change this format date time. So see, that intelligence is quite awesome actually in this one. Format date time. Let me see what is the, how does the function look like. So it says timestamp, so I need to provide the timestamp first. So I again go to the dynamic content and I choose the joining date as my timestamp. The second thing that it asks for is the format in which you want to get it converted. So if I remember it correctly, I would say DD this MMM, I don't know exact format, so you can search in Google what are the different formats. Let's try this one, DD MMM and YYY. So this is the format date time that we just added. So now let us save this and test this. So if you see, now the format is pretty better. It is 3rd September 2025. So I will change this name as format date expression. Okay, cool. Okay, so the last thing that I want to show you is expression on the logical condition. So for this, again, I will use a data operation called compose, and here I want to show you the if condition where I want to check if the salary, basic salary is greater than 5,000, then I say you are rich, else I want to say you are poor. So just for the sake of demonstration, so I click on this fx condition, and if I say if, so here if you see this if condition, this intelligence of this will come up and it will tell you what it is all about. So if you have to write an expression, so I would say if greater than, greater condition I have to check, or greater than which. So if the dynamic content, I will say as the basic salary and the compare to, what is the salary that I am comparing it is 5,000. Then if this is greater, I will make it a little bit bigger for you. So if the greater than this basic salary is 5,000, then if it is true, I want, so if you say value if true, I will say as you are rich, and if it is lower than this, then I would say you are poor. 5,000 you are rich, else you are poor. So you are separating it with comma. I will say this as if expression. So then I will test this flow. So I click on automatic and I will say save and test. Let us see what happens. So the condition has run successfully. So it says you are poor. So this means my salary is, so my salary was 5,000, but my expression was over if greater than 5,000. So because it was equal to 5,000, it was not greater than 5,000, then it is saying poor. So this is all about expressions, and I hope you would have learned on how do you use expressions in Power Automate so that you can make your flow dynamic.